Hi, I'm glad you stopped by for a story. The story that I want to share with you right now comes from a collection of tales done by Richard Chase. They're called Grandfather Tales. And this is a man who went up into the Appalachian Mountains and listened to people telling stories all up and down those mountains. This particular story is called Gallymanders. Well, now there was once an old woman lived way up in the mountains all by herself in a little cabin, and she'd been a very independent person her entire life. But finally the time came when she was getting a bit decrepit, and she knew she needed some help because things just weren't looking right around the place. So she made herself a trip into town, and she went to the agency and hired herself a girl to help out. Well, she went on home with that girl behind her, and she showed the girl where everything was and all the things that needed doing. And the girl followed and said, "Yes'm, I can do that, man. Yes'm, I can do that." Well, comes to turn out that girl was as lazy as the day is long. And no matter how much that old woman would nag at her, she would just kind of go along at her own pace. If she was weeding the garden, or if she was washing the dishes or cleaning the floor, it just always took a bit of time and never got completely done. But the old woman, she didn't want to have to go back into the agency again and get another girl and get her all worked out, so she just kind of put up with it until one day when the old woman, she did need to go off a piece to a neighbor's place and help that neighbor with some work. And she told the girl before she left, said, "Now, girl, I sincerely hope you do manage to get the dishes done and the floor swept and the garden weeded and the barn cleaned out while I'm gone. But whatever you do, girl, whatever you do, don't you be looking up that chimney." "Oh, no, ma'am, I wouldn't look up that chimney, ma'am." Well, of course, the old woman was no more than down off that mountain when, what do you think that girl did? She did. She went right over and she looked up that chimney. "Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. There's a leather bag up there." And so she took the poker there beside the chimney and she poked up until that leather bag fell down into the ashes. And she opened it up and, oh, it was filled with gold and silver coins. "Oh, I'm rich now. I'm rich now." That girl did not have one more thought about that old woman. No, indeed. Out she went, out the door and down the hill, and she was running as hard and fast as she could. And she came to a place where there was an old horse standing out there in the field, and the horse said, "Oh, good girl, won't you stop and rub my back? They rode me hard and put me away all sweaty and hot, and rub my back. I'll give you a ride." "What? Dirty my pretty white hands on the likes of you. I'm rich now. I got no time for you," said the girl. And on she went a-running. And she ran till she went by this field where there was an old cow standing. And the cow said, "Oh, good girl, won't you stop and milk me? Nobody's been around to milk me for 3 days. And you milk me, I'll let you have all you want." "What? Dirty my pretty white hands on the likes of you. I'm rich now. I got no time for you." And on she ran until she went by an orchard, and there was a peach tree. And the peach tree called out to her and said, "Oh, good girl, won't you stop and prune all these suckers out of me? I haven't been pruned in forever, and I'd have much better peaches if I'd been pruned, and you can have some if you'll just do that for me." "What? Dirty my pretty white hands on the likes of you. I'm rich now. I got no time for you, but I do have time to eat your peaches." And that girl, she climbed up into that old peach tree, and she started eating those peaches until, she grew sleepy. And she was sound asleep. Right about the same time, the old woman got back from her neighbors, and she walked into her house. She, Girl? Wonder where that girl got to." And she looked around and she, "Uh-oh, that girl's gone. And I'll But she looked up in that chimney. And the old woman went over and she looked at that chimney. Her leather bag was gone, and out she ran, running down the road, yelling, "Gallymanders, Gallymanders, all my gold and silver's gone, my great long money purse." And she came to the place where that horse was, and she said, "Seen a girl go by with a jig and a jag and a long leather bag and all my gold and silver?" "Oh, yes, ma'am, I did," said the horse. "I did, and she deserves to be caught up with, that girl did. She wouldn't help me a bit." "Well, I thank you, horse." And on ran that old woman. "Gallymanders, Gallymanders, all my gold and silver's gone, my great long money purse," until she came to the place where that cow was. And she said to the cow, "Seen a gal go by with a jig and a jag and my long leather bag and all my gold and silver?" "Yeah, I saw her, ma'am. I saw her. She went right down the road that way. You go ahead and catch that girl. She wouldn't help me a bit." And so off that old woman went. "Thank you, cow." And she was a-hollering, "Gallymanders, Gallymanders, all my gold and silver's gone, my great long money purse," till she came to that orchard. She asked that peach tree, "Seen a gal go by with a jig and a jag and a long leather bag and all my gold and silver?" "Why, yes, ma'am, I have," said the peach tree, "and she's right here, and you're welcome to her." And the peach tree bent over and tossed that girl right in front of the old woman, who snatched up her bag of gold and silver, took a branch out of that peach tree and started switching her legs and chased her long and hard until finally she decided she would never come back. Old woman went home, put that long leather bag with all her gold and silver back up in the chimney, and decided she would just try and make it on her own. But she couldn't. She just couldn't. She couldn't keep up with her chores. So finally, she had to go back down to the agency, and she hired a girl from them, and she told them she wanted to be sure and have a hard-working, honest girl that wasn't going to steal anything from her. And she got lucky this time. The girl that she hired, she was as honest and hard-working as the last one had been, lazy and dishonest. And she worked for that old woman. That place hadn't ever looked so good. And she planted extra flowers out in the garden, and she made some curtains for the window. And the old woman was eating really good, and times were fine. And then the old woman, she thought, I need to go down to my neighbor's there for a piece and do some work down there. Now, girl, while I'm gone, you know what chores you got to do. "Oh, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. I got to wash the dishes and wash the floor and weed the garden and clean out the barn. I'll get all that done, ma'am, and maybe I'll have a little time to knit you something." All right, thank you, girl." And off went the old woman. But before she was completely gone, she turned, "Now, girl," she had a reminder, "whatever you do, don't you be looking up that chimney." "Oh, no, ma'am, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't look up that chimney." So the woman went off. And that girl, she did all those chores. She washed the dishes, and she cleaned the floor, and she weeded the garden, and she shoveled out the barn. And when she was all finished, the old woman wasn't home yet. So she sat down in a rocking chair in front of the fireplace, and she started knitting. And she was working on a sweater, and she was just rocking. I wonder what's up that chimney. I said I wouldn't look. Just one little peek. Just one little peek. I don't know why I shouldn't. I just got to look. So she went over and she looked at that chimney. "Oh, look at that. A leather bag." And she sat back down in a rocking chair. "A leather bag up there. I wonder what's in that leather bag." I said I wouldn't look. But I wonder what's in there. I'll just get it down, then I'll put it right back up. So she took the poker beside the fireplace, and she poked that leather bag till it landed right there in the fireplace. And she opened it up, and she saw all that gold and silver, and she said, "Oh, look at all these play pretties." And she proceeded to play. She'd make little houses with some of the coins, and other coins, they were people, and she made mountains out of them. And she played for a good long time till finally she put them all back in the bag, because she thought the old woman would be coming home. And she closed up that bag, and she went to put it back up in the chimney. And every time she'd poke it back up there, it'd fall down. And she'd poke it back up there, and it would fall down. Oh dear. She started getting so worried. Old woman's going to be so angry at me. I gotta go. I just gotta go. And she left that bag lying right there in the ashes. And out she went, out the door and down the road. She ran as fast as she could till she came to that field where that old horse was standing. Now, you know that old horse, the one that Ben rode so hard. And he called out to her and he said, "Oh, good girl, won't you please stop and rub my back? I've been rode hard, and I really could use a good rub down." "Well, I really need to get going. I guess I have enough time to do that," said the girl. And so she grabbed up some grass and she rubbed that old horse down. Oh, it felt so good. And after she was done, that horse gave her a ride for a bit of the ways. And she got off the horse and she was right there where that old cow was. And that cow called her and said, "Oh, good girl, won't you please milk me? They haven't milked me for days and it's so painful. You milk me, I'll let you have some to drink." "Well, I'm in a terrible rush," said the girl. "Oh, woman's going to get home. She's going to be so mad at me for playing with her long leather bag. But, well, I guess I can make a little time to help you out." And so she took a pail that was on the fence post just for this purpose. And she milked that old cow. And when she was finished, she took a nice long drink of milk. And cow said, Thank you, girl. "Oh, you're welcome." And on she went down the road. And by she came to where that peach tree was, and that peach tree called out to her. But you know what it said by now. Good girl, won't you stop and prune all these suckers out of me? I'm so overgrown, I can't even breathe, much less grow good peaches. Well, I'm in a terrible rush, but I guess I could probably do that." So she climbed up there, and she completely pruned that peach tree until it looked like it had always been taken care of. And when she was finished, she ate some peaches and she fell asleep. About that time, the old woman got home. And you know, she'd been burnt once before by that first girl. And oh, when she didn't find her girl around the place anywhere, she just went wild. She went screaming out of that house. "Gallymanders, all my gold and silver's gone, my great long money purse." And she was a-running and she ran down the hill and past where that horse was. And she said to that horse, "Seen a gal go by with a jig and a jag and a long leather bag and all my gold and silver?" No, I haven't seen anybody," said the horse. Well, the woman kept on going, and she was a-running, she was a-hollering, and her skirts was a-flapping. Gallymanders, all my gold and silver's gone, my great long money purse." She got to where that cow was, and she asked that cow, "Seen a gal go by with a jig and a jag and a long leather bag and all my gold and silver?" "No," said the cow. "No girl here." Well, by now, that old woman was just about breathless. But she kept a-going, and she kept a-running, and she kept a-hollering, Gallymanders, all my gold and silver's gone, my great long money purse." She came to that peach tree. She asked the peach tree the same thing. "Seen a gal go by with a jig and a jag and a long leather bag and all my gold and silver?" And the peach tree just said, "No, ma'am, nobody here." And that old woman, she kept on running, and she ran until she plumb ran out of breath, and she fell over, stiff as a board beside the road. Neighbor came along and found her, picked her up, took her home, and I believe she did finally recover. I never did hear whether or not she found her long leather bag in the ashes, but I did hear that girl, she stayed right there at that peach orchard, and she built herself a little house, and she sold the fruit from the orchard, and she had herself a nice, fine life.